to show you how to install a GrassFlap onto a Hustler Surfer Pro. Before we get started with the install, I want to show you what the final product is going to look like. Here's the pedal mounted onto the foot deck. It's held on with a couple of bolts here. Then the cable's routed up to the front. We tie it down with a cable clamp supplied, routed up along the left-hand side, up past the holder for the rest of the cables on the mower, where we zip tie it there. Now we're going to come around to the front, and in the front there's a crossover bar that we're going to hang the cable from, loosely hang the zip tie there. Then from there we're going to run over to the GrassFlap itself and connect it to the GrassFlap. Now so let's get started putting the pedal on first. We want to count over to the fourth row on the foot pan, the second row up. We'll go ahead and drill a hole here. We're going to open this out to a 5/16 diameter hole for the bolt for the pedal. We'll also do the first hole up there, which has already been done. Then we'll go ahead and mount the pedal. So this is a little bit tricky. You've got a nut that you're going to have to slip up underneath. I found the best way to do that is to put the nut into your 1/2-inch wrench. Then you can hold the 1/2-inch wrench underneath the hole. Then we'll go ahead and start the bolt in from the top. Then we'll go ahead and swing the pedal around. We're going to go ahead and put the bolt into the back end of it. So again, we've got a nut that we're going to use up from the bottom side. Then we're going to spin the nut on top here. We'll go ahead and tighten everything up with a couple of 1/2-inch wrenches here. Then we'll do the second one. Go ahead and get it tightened up. Now we're going to go ahead and install the cable onto the pedal end. So we'll slip the clevis end of the cable up the left side. Take the ball end of the cable. We're going to pull the rubber boot off. We're going to spin nut number 1 off the cable. We'll leave nut number 2 threaded as far onto the fitting as it will go. Now we're going to slip the cable into the slot provided on the pedal. Go ahead and insert the fitting, and then put jam nut number 1 back onto the fitting. Now that we have the jam nuts snug, we're going to go ahead and connect the clevis. It's a little bit tight in here, so I found it easier to grab it with a pair of needle nose pliers, so you can reach in and slip the clevis onto the end of the fitting. Now that we've got the clevis on, we're going to go ahead and slip it up over the bracket and put the pin in. You want to make sure you do this with the other end of the cable still loose, otherwise you can't pull the pedal into the right position to connect the pin. Once we get the pin inserted, we're going to go ahead and install the cotter pin. Again, I found it's easier to use a pair of needle nose pliers to get this cotter pin inserted. ahead and connect the spring back onto the pedal. We'll go ahead and route the cable up here with the cable clamp. So we've got the cable clamp and we've got a self-drilling screw that we'll use here. This takes a Phillips head bit to run this screw in. And we want to go ahead and line the cable, just make sure it's got a nice smooth bend to it. Now we're going to go ahead and install the flap itself. To get started, we're going to install the deflector angle. So this deflector angle goes at the top of the flap and even on either edge. We'll apply the deflector angle using the double-sided tape already on the angle. This is pretty aggressive tape, so make sure you get it in the right location you want it to start with. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and set the GrassFlap onto the mower itself and install the bolts for that. So the mount with the spring on it goes on the front side of the mower deck, on the front side of the tab. We'll insert the 3/8 bolts provided. We're going to run these down, but we're not going to tighten them up. We're just going to get them so they're snug. Now we'll go ahead and put the rear mount on. This goes on the back side of the tab. We'll run the nut on, and again we're going to run it down so that it's just short of being snug, so we can make our final adjustment and then tighten everything up. Okay, now we want to make sure that the flap is against the side of the mower deck, so I'm going to press it up there. I'll go ahead and run these bolts down tight. On this front one, you want to make sure that it's more or less level, so the spring mount's got a straight pull on it. Now that we have the bolts tight, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and connect the spring mount. I found a pair of channel locks, grabbing the open end of that loop and pull it into position onto this bolt. Now that we have that in place, we're going to go ahead and install the cable. So once again, we're going to pull the rubber boot off the cable, spin jam nut number 1 off the fitting, set jam nut number 2 about halfway up the fitting, slide the cable into the slot provided, spin jam nut number 1 back on and snug it up, push the rubber boot back in place. Now we're going to go ahead and install the clevis pin. So there's a little brass bushing, 1/4 inch. It goes in the hole first. And we're going to take the clevis and it's going to straddle that brass bushing, and we'll put the clevis pin in. The head of the clevis pin goes on the same side as the spring. Then we'll put the cotter pin in place here. Now, we'll make sure before we leave that we snug the jam nuts up on the flap itself, and the same for the pedal. So here's how it's going to operate. It's a push and release to get it to come all the way over. You can do it with your heel from the left side or the right side, or you can stand on the pedal and push it with your toe. So there it is, GrassFlap installation on a Hustler Surfer Pro.